Design claim inflation must not be allowed to pose a threat to macroeconomic stability. It means that inflation or increase in the prices of the goods, it should not allow to pose a threat. Means we should not let inflation take over the macroeconomic stability. The huge economic stability, the huge economic stability that we have right now, that too after the COVID-19 pandemic, we should not let the inflation take over the stability. The latest retail inflation readings should go on and face of it offer monetary authorities a fair amount of comfort given that the consumer price index CPI rose by 4.06% in January, marking a deceleration for a second straight month to a 16th month low. So the latest retail inflation, the readings of the latest retail inflation, they show that on the face of it, what they basically show is that um, offer monetary authorities that fair offer monetary authorities a fair amount of comfort given that the consumer price index CPI rose by 4.06% in January, making a deceleration for a second straight month to a 16-month low. Inflation appears to have cooled after having stayed stubbornly stuck above the Reserve Bank of India's upper tolerance threshold of 6% for 6 months through November, helped by an appreciable softening in food prices. Uh, so inflation appears to have cooled after. So inflation it has appeared to decrease. Inflation has appeared to decrease after having stayed stubbornly stuck above the Reserve Bank of India's upper tolerance of threshold 6%. So for some time the inflation of India it has stuck at 6% for 6 months straight, and and the 6% and the 6% of the inflation, it was actually the standard provided by the Reserve Bank of India's upper tolerance threshold, not standard. um, that's the maximum amount of the inflation that could be according to the Reserve Bank of India. And our inflation had that and our inflation had that 6% straight for 6 months. November through November, helped by an appreciable softening in food prices. So because of that, there was a decrease in the food prices until November. Especially the consumer food price index reflected a gain of mere 1.89% last month, as vegetable prices saw a disinflation of 15.8% and cereal prices eased considerably for a second month in the wake of the Kharif crop arrivals. So, as I said before, there was a decrease in the food prices, and the data is given here. As I said, in the food prices there was a disinflation, means a decrease in the prices, and that was by 15.8%. In the case of the cereals, in the case of the cereal prices, they have also eased considerably, means a, a considerable amount of their cost have been decreased. The RBI in its monetary policy statement this month cited the bumper kharif crop, raising prospects of a good rabi harvest, larger winter arrivals of key vegetables, and softer egg and poultry demand on avian flu fears as factors that argued well for the months ahead. So the problem that we have now is the flu is the flu which is killing many number of birds in Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and Haryana, and many places. So we really need to take care of this flu, and we should not let this flu create another pandemic among the animals. But the central bank was mindful of the risks too, especially with regard to food costs. When the latest data had brought to the forced concerns over the prices and pulses of edible oils, while inflation in pulses and products was 13.4. So as I said, the food department, or the RBI, it was aware of all the risks. It was aware of the flu risk. It was aware of the inflation risk. It was aware of everything. And it was also aware of the prices or the inflation or the disinflation um, in the food such as oils. In the food such as pulses and edible oils. While inflation in pulses and products was at 13.4%, that for oils and fats stood at 19.7%. So the data of the inflation is given here. In For both the pulses and products, the inflation it was combinedly 13.4%, whereas for combined oils and fats it was 19.7%. Eggs and meat and fish, two other key sources of protein, both posted double-digit rates of inflation respectively, with the price gains in the former barely registering any telling impact from the avian flu outbreak. So this is a this is a very fortunate thing, and it is that the meat or eggs, meat, and fish, um, all the important source of protein in India, or in any place for that matter, there was an inflation of 12.9% and 12.5%, respectively. Means the inflation next was 12.9%, and the inflation for meat and fish combinedly was 12.5%. This is a very fortunate thing, because if you observe one thing, the flu is near us, and these meat products or these protein products, they were not affected by disinflation, but they were affected by inflation. It's a very good thing. Now, with the favorable base effect beginning to wane, inflation moderated by more than 100 basis points on February 2020 to 6.58% before slowing to 5.84% in March. The outlook is far from reassuring. Um, Now, with the favorable base, now we have a favorable condition right now, and it may wane. Means that favorable condition may decrease. It may decrease its intensity, and something bad could happen. Of particular worry is trend to input costs of multiple sectors in the real economy, including manufacturing.